Good afternoon, and thank you very much for joining us for the roundtable number 2, Nature-Based Resilience and Greening Our Cities. Climate Governance would like to welcome you to this roundtable series 2025, which will include other subjects, another 19 subjects across 6 broad themes: built environment, power, agriculture, transition finance, biodiversity, and community engagement. A quick background on the Roundtable series. It's a collaborative platform bringing together industry leaders, policymakers, academics, and corporate players. The goal is to crowdsource practical policy recommendation for Malaysia's climate transition, learning from others. CGM has done this before. The first Roundtable series was held in 2022 and successfully moved the climate governance agenda forward with recommendations of policies to government. Let me introduce our special speakers for today. We have Dr. Sri is an Associate Director of Research at the Future Cities Laboratory Global, Singapore's ETH Center. Her research focuses on integrated landscape design in high-density urban environments, and her work has been published in leading journals and exhibited internationally, including the Venice Biennale 2023. We have also with us Muhammad Yushanizar, is a Senior Deputy Director at the City Planning Department of Kuala Lumpur City Hall, DBKL, as most of you may know. With over 20 years of experience in urban and regional planning, he currently oversees research, planning, coordination, climate action, low carbon city initiative, smart city integration, and public realm enhancements. From Singapore also, we have Stewart Tan, Deputy Director of Research at the Centre for Livable Cities. He leads the Future Communities and Social Behavioural Sciences research pillars focusing on society shifts, built environment challenges, and the application of social sciences to urban systems, infrastructure, and sustainability. And lastly, we do have Dr. Yogi, or Yogeswary, is Senior Manager and Interim Lead for Climate Resilience at Think City. She has extensive experience in project management across sustainability, climate change, food security, and social inclusion, and now leads climate resilient programs in Malaysia with a focus on nature-based solutions and urban adaptation. Just a quick housekeeping note. There's a Q&A open throughout on the right-hand side, so please put in some questions if you do have it. And at the end, we will have a Zoom survey will pop up, and we really, really appreciate you share some feedback. So my name is Dr. Serina Hijjas, President of Malaysian Green Building Council, also a council member of Climate Governance Malaysia, and I'll be your moderator for today. So may we start with the first speaker on strategies for cooling Singapore and urban greenery?
Thank you, Serina, and thank you to CGM for inviting me to share some of our work, which we have been doing here. I'll just quickly share my screen just to make sure everybody is able to see it. So today, of course, my topic is about strategies for cooling Singapore using urban greenery as a very key tool. So I've just kind of put that into something where we have been working, a project called Dense and Green Cities, and how it has actually shaped the way we approach its performance on the cooling aspect of Singapore. So I'll just quickly proceed with our, so what I'll do is I'll actually give like a bit of an overview of what Singapore has done in the realm of urban greenery and policies and changes. And then I will give you a snippet of the kind of research which I am involved in and where we are contributing towards pushing this whole agenda in a more evidence-based urban science direction. So some very introductory slides, which I think all of us are very familiar with. So we do know that cities play a very important role. They are kind of the generators of the problem we face today, but they are also the place where you can find the solutions. So in that way, I think the city is a very key aspect for us to talk about when we are looking at climate change and urbanization. And often it is again not new to know that nature has actually become a key driver of how we can address these problems and challenges we are facing. So I personally think that this particular graphic captures it pretty well, where the climate change, people and nature have this very interesting relationship. So while we, the nature people, have impacted what has happened to the climate aspect, we also are in a position to reverse it using the same three components. So it is really about how do we work around the relationship between these three elements. So the solutions actually lie in the urban ecosystems approach and also towards this idea of nature-based solutions. So in our research, we always talk about being nature positive, in the sense we are moving from being just sustainable and resilient to actually becoming regenerative. So how do we do that transition, like from being just not doing bad to actually making it do good? And often the solutions mean that you have to align the natural systems and the built systems into a very cohesive, productive, performative cycle. So if you see Singapore's transformation journey, of course, it's been quite a drastic story, right? From the 1965, where it was really a poor fishing village, to what we see today as a global powerhouse. And again, everything is by design, in the sense there is a certain visioning and there's a planning towards where we have achieved today. And I think this is a graph which Stewart will be very familiar with, because it was from the Center for Livable Cities, where the study kind of shows that it's a classic example of how Singapore has positioned itself as a high density and high livability city. And one of the key aspects which has helped Singapore achieve this particular success has been the role of greenery, has been the role of nature, has been the role of what and how the green aspect has been integrated into the planning and visioning of the city. So if you see, so I do talk about this as dense plus vertical plus green. That's what Singapore stands for, right? So there are many, many policies which have gone through. There are many, many initiatives which have gone through to arrive at where we are today. And these policies range from the global level to even the community level. So there are multi-scale policy interventions which have been done to translate some of these big ideas and visions into reality. So if we look back, the thing is really about scale. It is also about collaboration. How there is a strategic collaboration between policymakers, between stakeholders, research, academia, practice, and also education. So how we have been able to come together at multiple levels for these different scales to be effective. So in the global scale, if you see what Singapore has contributed, is actually the Singapore's Biodiversity Index. So that's like a global index which was conceived and generated from Singapore, from the national parks. And then it is a self-assessment tool, which kind of helps us. It's actually a first step towards quantifying the health of biodiversity in a city. And that particular aspect was something which was quite novel at a point of time where everybody was talking about biodiversity, about nature-based solutions, about a garden city and performance of these green spaces. So that became like one of the key contribution of Singapore at the global scale. Currently, I think there are hundreds of cities who have adopted this framework to score and to quantify their health of biodiversity at a city level. So it's very easy applicable framework. I mean, it's a downloadable, it's a free version. People can actually look at it, but it kind of gives you two key aspects. One is really the profiling of the city based on the biodiversity health. And the second part is really the indicators, which can tell you what kind of ecosystems are being provided, the provisioning, the governance, and the management. So when we move on from the global to a national scale, the key aspect is the whole visioning of Singapore's greenery. So it actually started initially as a garden city, so which really looked at using the green layer as a way to build social fabric and also to build a healthy and clean image of a city. So it really started as a garden city approach. And then we slowly transitioned from looking at the greenery in city as just aesthetic to something which could become performative. So it was really like a one level of transition. So it was a play of words, but it had a lot of meaning. So from a garden city, it became a city in a garden, where biophilic approach became a key towards driving people closer to nature. And currently, we are moving from this idea of a garden to a nature. So that means we are looking at transforming the idea of greenery from not just for people, but also for biodiversity. So there is a distinct shift in the way you perceive greenery, and that has also become, in a way, a key pillar towards what Singapore wants to achieve moving forward. So if you see the Singapore Green Plan 2030, there are 6 critical pillars which are going to be our drivers for achieving our targets. And city in nature is actually one of the very key pillars. And for me, the key aspect in this whole thing is how the whole shift has changed from people-centric notion and planning to actually life-centric notion. That means life includes people and nature in the whole process. And how they are going to translate this is, of course, to extend the green networks within the city, increase the amount of green cover, enhance biodiversity. All these are very simple metrics to assess whether you're able to achieve what we are planning to do. And I think in all these interesting aspects is to see how has it performed and how has it translated in the past years. So one of the policies which have actually been very critical in the shaping of Singapore is called LUSH. So LUSH is really called the Landscape for Urban Spaces and High Rises. And this was established sometime in 2009, if I'm not wrong, where they really looked, where the transition was happening from a garden city to a city in a garden. At that time, it was still a city in a garden narrative. And then the idea was, how do you make sure that people feel that they are covered by greenery everywhere they go, right? So that was also a time where Singapore had this distinct idea of going high density, high rise, right? So the moment you go high density, high rise, the compromise which is the most obvious is being further away from the ground plane, and being further away from nature. So how do you really bring nature closer to your doorstep? That is what the LUSH policy did. It kind of lifted the whole layer of greenery from the ground to multiple levels in the sky. So I think that was one of the key transformative policy in the whole transition of what Singapore now looks like. So it's not just about coming up with a policy and coming up with the idea, right? But the idea is about how do you translate it into an effective implementation where people actually take it and they move it forward. So in addition to being a policy, there were also many drivers which made this policy become very effective. So one was the incentive scheme. So when you are asking developers and stakeholders to change the way they look at the development of a building, you need to also give them enough incentives to make that transition. So I think what I'm trying to share here is the lot of levers which were added in to make sure that this particular policy could become an effective tool for the future. So if we see till today, there are about 155 hectares of skyrise greenery already established in Singapore. And the target in 2030 is actually 200. So we are not very far to reach this. In fact, we might reach it much earlier, and we might be able to go beyond the target set. The other thing is also the certification scheme. So once you have something like a policy in place, you need to make it robust enough. So you have guidelines, you have safeties, you have policies. I mean, a way like frameworks on how you go about doing this. And then at the end of the day, it's also about making sure that there is a quality control. So there's certification, which was also built in. So currently there are about 180 buildings which have got the Green Skyrise Greenery certification. And all these feed into the green building and the green mark schemes, which are there for the sustainability goals. Another aspect was also this LEAF framework, which is basically going more deeper into the qualitative aspects of the greenery, which is being implemented in Singapore. So it's not just about having the quantitative aspect, that means how much of greenery and where it is. It's also what kind of greenery it is, what kind of function it is giving you. Is it just aesthetic? Is it just social? Does it have ecological? Does it have environmental impact? So again, it is going one step above just implementing a guideline, but actually finding levers to push the quality. So currently we have about 103 buildings which have attained the certification of excellence out of the 180 which have achieved certification. So another key policy was, of course, the active, beautiful, clean. So if you see, I'm going from the green layer and then to the blue layer. So you're looking at integrating the green-blue infrastructure into becoming a multifunctional, recreational green space for the people. So this, again, was a policy which was a unique blend between multiple agencies to come together. And there are certification schemes, again, there are award schemes. So we have about 124 projects which have been certified. So what these numbers tells us is that in addition to having a policy, being able to successfully implement it is a very key aspect. And just a quick overview, we recently released a book called Designing a City in Nature. This is the collaboration between the National Parks and the Singapore Institute of Landscape Architects. And we managed to capture some very key milestone projects, which have actually defined certain shifts in the way policies were made, in the shifts in the way projects were designed. So it's something which is of interest. It's available. It's not a very expensive book, but it's something which will give you a lot of information of how this transition has happened in the form of projects, which is very easy to refer. So what we see in this whole thing is like, we need to start looking at landscape spaces as interconnected networks, right? So it has to be a planned system. It cannot be that you just do some parts and then hope that everything comes together on its own. So in the case of Singapore, for example, the challenge is that you have all the built systems, you have the natural systems, but everything has to happen in the same spatial footprint. You don't have the luxury that I have, you know, a separate so-called outskirts or rural or a forested area where we can balance these two systems out. So the challenge really is about creating this ecological value and social value within the same spatial footprint. And so in terms of how you can divide these, because there are different ways in which we can look at it. This is just my interpretation of this, that there are certain areas which are high in ecological value, so you try to preserve them. There are some which are kind of transitions between your social and ecological value. And at the end of it, you have the built structure, which is really where one needs to stretch the ecological value, because often these are built with high social value. So can we look at performative design? Like, how do we come up with methods and frameworks to understand whether we are designing these spaces well? So that is where my research entity comes in. So we started this whole process of researching performative buildings at the Singapore-ETH Center Future Cities Laboratory. So this journey started in 2019, where we were trying to understand this evolving typology called dense and green buildings, because you have high density, but you also have a high amount of greenery integrated. Do these really perform well? Are they kind of giving us a new way of looking at ecosystem services? And how do they fit into this whole narrative of urban ecosystems? So we picked up about 8 case studies, 6 in Singapore, 2 outside. I think one was in Bosco Verticale and the other is in Sydney, to just understand how do they perform as an integrated building where density and greenery comes together. And interestingly, we went through many aspects. We looked at the social aspects, we looked at ecological aspect, we looked at economics, we looked at environmental. So something which is very interesting to see is that we did find that the environmental aspect was very strong. So we could monitor, and we actually collected samples and we analyzed it. This is again published in a book which was released in 2020, Dense and Green Cities, where the integration of greenery with this building, I mean, this typology, was able to actually reduce the surface temperatures by up to 23.5 degrees. If you see cumulative from horizontal greenery, vertical greenery, everything put together. So what it tells us is that these building typologies can actually function as ecosystem services in itself. Like, you know, the entire thing works as a system, providing the ecosystem services. So what we were looking at is, okay, if one building can actually help us provide this level of performance, what happens when we scale it to a district? Like if we just expand it, does the incremental change exponential? Or is there another factor which we need to look at? So that is where we started the second the project, which is called Dense and Green Cities, looking at basically integrated urban development. So what we see is there are new prototypes where Singapore is also testing of a systems planning approach as compared to conventional planning approaches. So does that help us achieve better performance? So the research was actually looked at about 7 projects. There are 3 in Singapore and 1 each in London, Amsterdam, Toronto, and Zurich. And everything was looking at how do integrated districts perform. So in the interest of time, I might just go through one example, which is the One North district. If you're familiar with it, it's one of the innovation districts planned by Zaha Hadid. The master plan was done by Zaha. And then eventually it's being implemented. I won't say it's 100% implemented. It's still under implementation. Certain phases are still being built. So what can we understand from a district like this, whether it's performing spatially, socially, visually, ecological, environmental? And again, our focus was not on the buildings. Our focus was really on the spaces between the buildings. How do these urban green open spaces perform? And how do they play a role in the district itself? So just a quick run through of the different factors. So we first looked at, do the park spaces act as integrating elements, or do they really become separators of the whole district? So we saw that quite a few parts of the parks become strong connectors. Then we also looked at the visual aspects, like do what we perceive as the different layers, sky view factors, green factors, do they actually translate into how the space performs? And it also shows that compared to conventionally planned districts, these districts actually perform better in terms of perception of greenery, shade, and also the thermal comfort, which is something which was also calculated later in an experimental way. Then we look at social, like do such districts enable more community integration compared to conventionally planned districts? So that was also something which was a positive. So they were able to, the well-connected green open spaces were able to promote social integration than broadly laid out parks. The environmental factors, we actually had our researchers drive through the whole district with bicycle, which had all these sensors mounted, just to understand on the street level, how do people perceive the environmental conditions? Because when we look in a land satellite map, right, everything looks nice and green, but actually how you feel at the street is very different from what you see from the aerial views. So this particular experiment really wanted to see the experience of a person on the street. And of course, we concluded that the amount of green cover which One North provided actually positively impacted the thermal comfort perception of the space and also improved the thermal comfort. So people were more interested and keen to walk in this district compared to the conventionally planned district. And quickly, the ecological, where do the spaces then, also contribute to ecological connectivity, biodiversity, accessibility. So everything kind of, and we use the Singapore Biodiversity Index as a reference to quantify some of these performance at a district scale. And it gave us the confidence that the indicators were still effective, not just at a national scale, also at a district scale. And it was also able to give us a fairly good idea of how such spaces can give us a good indicator of the ecological connectivity of the district. And then eventually we also looked at converting all of these data into a digital twin, which can then help us to predict how future districts could be planned. So if we have certain benchmarks, and if we integrate them into a digital twin medium, we can assess performance while the projects are still in the design stages and being detailed out before they get fully implemented. So we also tried this on Punggol Digital District, which is a new district coming up in Singapore, still under construction. So it'll be interesting to see how our predictive results can be validated when it's get fully completed. So then while we also had this curiosity that, we look at greenery on the horizontal scale, right? But what happens to the skyrise greenery? Do they still perform as part of a network, or are they just, cul-de-sacs in air? Do they just have no contribution to the larger connectivity? So there's one example was a building in One North, which is the Wilmar headquarters, which has this extensive greenery distributed on the skyrise from the surrounding ground level. So we actually conducted an exploratory study on understanding how ecological connectivity could be studied from the ground to the skyrise greenery, because we are looking at 200 hectares of skyrise greenery in 2030. So can those also become an integral part of contribution to the larger network? So this is just one of our research, which was interesting. So what we found was proximity was very key. So planning the vertical green along with how you lay out your horizontal green becomes quite interesting. So all these research has been published. The Dense and Green Urban Development was a book we recently launched in May, where we have captured the summary of all the research we've done in the past 5 years, and also some of the recent publication of our research in the International Journal of Smart and Sustainable Cities. All these are open access, so please feel free to go in and take a look at these papers. One was a policy paper, which kind of uses the One North case study to identify potential translation points. So this is just some of our additional papers which you could look into. There are at least 3 or 4 papers which are specific on thermal comfort and cooling aspects with respect to the cover of green. And just before I close my presentation, just a quick glimpse on what we are working on now. Currently, very excited. We are working on this project called Urban Ecological Corridors. We just started this early this year with URA, Urban Redevelopment Authority, and National Parks, where the team is really looking at co-location of people and ecology. So how do you effectively plan for multifunctional urban corridors? In a place like Singapore, where space is a premium, you don't have the luxury. So urban corridors, how do you transform them into multifunctional corridors for both people and ecology? So we're also experimenting on some novel mapping techniques, drone sampling for eDNA. And we are looking forward to share some of our results in the coming years. So hopefully we will be able to talk something in the next few years. So just to summarize it, it's just that we are looking at nature positive cities. It's functional, not just aesthetic. Connection, basically interconnectivity is very key. And we do need to shift from sustainable to regenerative solutions. And just a point to think that when we design with nature, we don't just cool our cities, we also warm. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sri. We went a little bit over time.
Oh, sorry.
About 15 minutes over time, but
oh my God.
Rest assured, we have time, so not to be too worried. I mean, there's a lot of dense information there on a sort of more technical level. I just want to bring it down to another level with our next speaker, Encik Muhammad Yushanizar, the Senior Deputy Director of City Planning DBKL, with ecological, friendly, livable and resilient green spaces. But he has actually his own title, which I will let him share. And I'd like to bring him to be the next speaker to speak. Thank you. and we'll hit the Q&As later.
Thank you once again, Dr. Serina, for the kind introduction just now. So this is distinguished guests, panelists, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamualaikum and very good evening to all. So allow me to begin my expressing my deepest appreciation to the organizers, CGM, for inviting me to share Kuala Lumpur's journey and commitment under the theme of 70 by 30 ecological, friendly, livable, and resilient green spaces. It's indeed an honor to be here among the esteemed thought leaders, sustainability advocates, and also urban practitioners who share a common goal to shape cities that are not only prosperous but also livable, inclusive, and environmentally resilient. Next slide, please. Thank you. So Kuala Lumpur story is one of remarkable transformation from its humble beginning in a tin mining settlement in the 19th century. The city has evolved into a dynamic metropolis spanning about 243 square kilometers, a home over 2 million residents and a key contributor to Malaysia's economic growth. However, with rapid urbanization comes immense responsibility. As the engine of national development, Kuala Lumpur must continuously balance growth with sustainability, ensuring that our urban progress does not come at the expense of our environment, our health, or our collective future. Hence, our shared mission at Kuala Lumpur City Hall, or DBKL, is clear: to shape Kuala Lumpur into a world-class, livable and sustainable and also resilient city for all, not just for a present generation, but also for generation to come. Next slide. So in line with Malaysian commitment as a signatory to the Paris Agreement, Kuala Lumpur has pledged to reduce its carbon emission intensity by 70% by the year of 2030 and to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050. Next slide. This ambitious target known as 70 by 30, as Dr. Serina mentioned just now, serve as a clear milestone on our city's pathway toward a low carbon and climate resilient future. Next slide. To chart this journey, the BKL has developed several key master plans and blueprints that serve our policy backbone. Our Kuala Lumpur Structure Plan 2040, Kuala Lumpur Low Carbon Society Blueprint 2030, Kuala Lumpur Pedestrian and Cycling Master Plan 2030, Kuala Lumpur Climate Action Plan 2050, and newly gazetted our Kuala Lumpur Local Plan 2040. And each of these plans represent a critical component of our sustainability ecosystem, guiding how we build, move, and live within our urban environment. Next slide, please. Ladies and gentlemen, as the world faces unprecedented climate challenge, Kuala Lumpur cannot act in isolation. We have therefore aligned our policies and action with global sustainability movements, including the United Nations 70 Sustainable Development Goals. In particular, our strategies support SDG 11, SDG 13, and SDG 15. Next slide. Sorry, the picture just now is showing our SDG Center, Kuala Lumpur SDG Center, where the center is acting as a platform to collaborate and also to enhance and empower community to commit to the SDG. Next slide. Another slide. Thank you, Agatha. The reality, however, is that Kuala Lumpur has already begun to experience the effect of global warming. We have witnessed extraordinary rainfalls, flash floods, rising temperatures, and even freak storm. These are not abstract phenomena. They are lived experience and directly affect the safety, health, and well-being of our residents. The urgency is to act is real. It is now. Next slide. Our low carbon blueprint society 2030 prepared in 2050 provide a comprehensive roadmap with 10 main actions and 245 programs across 5 key sectors: energy, waste, mobility, community, and also green and open spaces. Next slide. So this is our greener, better Kuala Lumpur targets, 70 by 30 document, Kuala Lumpur Low Carbon Society Blueprint 2030. You may try to download the document in our web portal, Kuala Lumpur City Hall web portal, to refer to the document. Next slide. Under Action 7, Blue and Green Network, 26 specific programs are being implemented. Their objective is included to protect and expanding green cover, promoting large-scale tree planting, improving green space maintenance, encouraging local community participation, and also enhancing urban water bodies. One significant example is the SUKE highway project, or we call it Suka highway project, where forest reserve land used to construction was replaced at a higher ratio. 68.27 hectares of Bukit Sungai Putih Forest Reserve were compensated with 84.6 hectares in Sungai Besi Forest Reserve. This reflects our firm stance in protecting Kuala Lumpur ecological assets. Next slide. To strengthen our natural resilience, DBKL has pledged to plant 1.5 million trees between 2021 and 2025. This initiative is not just about numbers. It's about cultivating the urban forest culture, fostering public participation, and also inspiring appreciation for more nature within the heart of the city. So this is the slide showing the forest reserve in the KL area. Next slide is our tree planting program. So our target by 5 years, and by 2030 we need to plant 1.5 million between this 2021 and 2025 years. Next slide. We have also adopted a community-based approach, working closely with residents, schools, NGO, and the private sector. Through this partnership, we educate citizens to the benefit of greener spaces and the importance of collective stewardship. Among our placemaking initiatives, DBKL has developed several pocket parks and community landscape, including landscape development at AU3 Setiawangsa, landscape improvement at the Hawker Center Lucky Garden Bangsa. Next slide. So this is the Setiawangsa site. Next slide is the Lucky Garden Bangsa, the Hawker Center. Next. So all of this project is small yet impactful project, provide urban respite, promote social cohesion, and improve local microclimates. Next slide. Oh, sorry, this slide. Sorry. Go back to this slide. So in alignment of our city vision of a city for all, Kuala Lumpur Sustainability Initiative also focus on inclusivity. One inspiring example is our program to empower homeless community through urban farming. By providing access to training, tools, and space, we have enabled participants to cultivate their own food, generate income, and also contribute to the city carbon reduction effort. This initiative not only support food security, but also reinforce social resilience, demonstrating that sustainability and compassion can and must coexist. Next slide. Our city parks such as Taman Tasik Setiawangsa and Taman Tasik Permaisuri have undergone significant enhancement with new water features and natural filtration system that help regulate urban temperature and manage stormwater. We are also developing linear city parks along river reserve under the ROL project, River of Life project, and Blue Pool project. We're connecting people with waterways, improving biodiversity, and creating continuous ecological and linear corridors across the city. Next slide, we refer to the Wangsa Maju Carbon Neutral Growth Center. Next slide. Allow me to highlight one of the most exciting flagship project, the Wangsa Maju Carbon Neutral Growth Center. As Kuala Lumpur first eco-conscious township, Wangsa Maju embodies our low carbon urban visions. Its program includes developing new neighborhood parks, building a solid waste recycling center, and also installing rainwater harvesting system in a new development. To reduce this emission from transport, we are integrating bicycle and pedestrian network shaded by trees to encourage active mobility. In additional 15 kilometers green connectors are being constructed to link Wangsa Maju with nearby residential areas such as Damansara Heights, Kenny Hills, and Bangsa Hills, extending towards the Kuala Lumpur Central Business District. Future plan also include electric vehicle charging infrastructure, further promoting clean mobility options. Next slide, we refer to the Green Connector project. This is our green network. Next slide. Yes. So building on these successes, DBKL has proposed the Green Connector project, a strategic initiative to establish an interconnected green space network throughout Kuala Lumpur. Its key objectives are to enhance green space connectivity, promote active and sustainability mobility, improve air quality and reduce urban heat island effect, enhance urban biodiversity, enrich community health and well-being, and strengthen Kuala Lumpur green identity. The Green Connector project represents the next evolution of Kuala Lumpur urban ecosystem, linking people, nature, and neighborhoods in a seamless, sustainable network. Tracking our progress in the carbon emission. As of 2024, the carbon intensity per GDP for Kuala Lumpur stand at 0.0695 kg CO2 per RM, with the commercial and institutional sector being the largest emitters. Compared to the 2017 baseline, we have already achieved an average greenhouse reduction of 30%, which gives us strong confidence that our 2030 target is within reach, provided we maintain momentum and continue to innovate. To bridge the remaining gap, DBKL is focusing on expanding renewable energy adoption, strengthening waste to resource management, enhancing green mobility network, encouraging low carbon lifestyle across all segments of society. Next slide. So this is our current ESG emission per GDP now, our intensity. Next slide. So this is our way forward to accelerate our target, 70 by 30. Next slide. So in conclusion, let us remember that our action today define the legacy we leave behind. If we are able to preserve our forests, rivers, and parks, we are protect our children's future. Then we must continue working together, hand in hand, towards our shared vision of a carbon neutral Kuala Lumpur by 2050. So let us move and continue to champion green growth, innovate urban resilience, and inspire one another to sustain our planet within 1.5 global warming limit. With that, I end my presentation. Thank you. Assalamualaikum.
Thank you, Mr. Yushanizar from DBKL. I'd like to invite very quickly speaker number 3, Stewart Tan from Planning for Green Livable Resilient City. He is basically Deputy Director of Research at the Centre for Livable Cities in the Ministry of National Development, Singapore. Over to you, Stewart.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Serina, and good afternoon, everyone. So firstly, allow me to convey my appreciation to CGM organizers for the kind invitation to speak to all of you today at the roundtable, where I will share on some of Singapore's policies and plans towards achieving a more green, livable, and resilient city. Okay, so I'm sure both of our countries know each other extremely well, but just as a recap, Singapore is a city-state with a population of 6.11 million, a figure recently announced last week as being a new record high for us. And with a total land area of about 736 square kilometers, we are a very compact city. And Singapore's urban transformation represents one model of sustainable development that strives to combine a compact city structure with a high quality of life. So before I go into my presentation proper, allow me to just quickly introduce the Centre for Livable Cities, otherwise known as CLC. CLC was formally established by the Ministry of National Development and the Ministry of Sustainability and Environment back in 2008. And CLC serves as the knowledge center for livable and sustainable cities and acts as an intermediary between government agency stakeholders and our academic and private sector partners to expand mindshare and explore joint urban solutions. CLC's work includes three core areas: research, capability development, and knowledge platforms. So as a future center, our research projects and publications cover areas such as the future of work, regenerative cities, future communities, and a series of livability-related research. CLC also develops training programs and co-organizes the biennial World City Summit, an exclusive platform for government leaders and industry experts to address urban challenges, share integrated solutions, and forge new partnerships. So now moving on to challenges facing cities and the infrastructure and environment sector, which CLC operates within. As we all know, one of the most significant challenges facing all cities is the impact of climate change and the consequent need for decarbonization. So back in 2024, the Centre for Climate Research Singapore released the findings of the third National Climate Change Study. And the study projects that by the end of the century, Singapore is expected to become warmer, with annual mean temperatures rising between 0.6 and 5 degrees, and an increase in very hot days exceeding 35 degrees Celsius, between 41 days with low emissions and up to 351 days under high emissions. Likewise, extreme daily rainfall is projected to increase, ranging from around 6% to 92% in the inter-monsoon months of April and May. Dry spells could also become more frequent and last longer too, with the island experiencing on average one dry spell every 10 to 60 months. And the mean sea level around Singapore is also projected to rise by 0.23 meters to 1.15 meters. So as the built environment sector contributes significantly to Singapore's carbon emissions, which about 20% of total emissions, we have to take actions both to mitigate and adapt to the effects of climate change. Concurrently, we also have to prepare for socioeconomic changes such as an aging population, new ways of working and living, and a more diverse demography with various competing needs and wants. And all these challenges overlap in many ways and affect the livability of our city and its residents as a whole, and we have to try and address them holistically. So the livability framework serves as a cornerstone for CLC, guiding the center's research focus and development of its knowledge products. It also provides city leaders and policymakers with a forward-looking and systems-focused lens through which they can generate more resilient strategies for enhancing livability and sustainability. So the LF was first developed in 2010. It captured and distilled key lessons from Singapore's journey from developing to a developed country. And we have since reviewed it, and a refreshed forward-looking framework was launched at the World City Summit last year. I will very quickly bring you through the diagram here. So there are three desired outcomes of livability: high quality of life, competitive economy, and sustainable environment. And then further three complementary systems, which is integrated master planning and development, dynamic urban governance, and collaborative ecosystem, which provides the enabling conditions to achieve and sustain the outcomes. So as we expect to face increasingly complex challenges in the future, a more robust urban planning approach is adopted. So in the recent long-term plan review, our colleagues at the Urban Redevelopment Authority of Singapore have implemented a scenario-based planning approach, which allows for multiple future pathways while avoiding being locked into existing solutions. So over 15,000 residents from all walks of life were also engaged through a variety of platforms, such as online surveys, talks, and in-depth discussions for them to share their hopes and aspirations and ideas for the future. We will allow for some flexibility in land use to cater to the changing needs of residents as demographics shifts over time. This includes continuing to plan and inject buffer spaces within towns, such as spaces within community buildings and pockets of empty land for future injection of new developments or unanticipated amenities. And state land that is not needed for immediate development is often also put to short-term use, such as interim hard courts or as green spaces for community events. And planners also use smart planning tools such as modeling and simulation to test potential scenarios and solutions before implementation to better anticipate development outcomes. And with growing planning complexities, integrated M&S is useful to allow planners to better understand trade-offs and to try and identify the optimal range of solutions more effectively. For example, conducting environmental modeling for various design permutations to determine wind corridors to safeguard in new precincts. So overall, these will strengthen our capacity to respond to unanticipated crises or cope with changes in long-term trends impacting our future. An example of a project that will take decades to realize is the Long Island project along our eastern coast. So Long Island will integrate coastal protection measures with future reclamation plans. It will be a solution that meets multiple national needs, including protecting our coast and low-lying inland areas against rising sea levels, enhancing our water security, and providing new land for waterfront living and recreation. And the Singapore Green Plan 2030, which represents Singapore's whole-of-nation effort towards sustainability, consists of 5 key pillars focusing on city nature, sustainable living, energy reset, green economy, and resilient future. Spanning across different sectors, it guides us towards achieving Singapore's long-term net zero emissions aspirations by 2050, hence contributing to a more resilient city. And a key program under the Green Plan is to transform Singapore into a city in nature. Temperatures in urban areas are rising due to the urban heat island effect because roads, buildings, and other structures made of cement, asphalt, or steel absorb and trap heat from the sun. On the other hand, urban greenery such as trees and green roofs help to cool the city, which will reduce the need for air conditioning and hence lower your energy consumption, and also improve outdoor thermal comfort of our residents. The role of nature or nature-based solutions and its multifunctional benefits, such as providing ecosystem services, cooling, improving mental well-being, and parks that help facilitate interactions and social bonds, are gaining importance as adaptation measures against the impact of climate change. So we must continue to weave nature extensively into our city, into our housing estates, industrial spaces, and connect them via ecological corridors and park connectors to further enhance their effectiveness. Today, we have safeguarded more than 7,800 hectares of green spaces in the form of nature reserves, nature parks, gardens, and integrated greenery throughout the city. As a result of our greening efforts, Singapore's green cover currently stands at around 40%. And under the 1 million trees movement, we aim to plant 1 million more trees across Singapore by 2030. Since the launch of the movement in April 2020, we have planted more than 800,000 trees with the help of the community, and we are on track to meeting our target. We also aim for every household to be within 10-minute walk of a park by 2030. To realize the strategy of leveraging ecosystem services, policy and governance is a critical enabler. So in Singapore, we have policies and incentives to introduce greenery into our buildings, such as what Dr. Sri shared about earlier, in terms of the URA, landscaping for urban spaces and high-rise, or LUSH program, and MPark Skyrise Greenery Incentive Scheme. So LUSH, in summary, just requires developers to replace greenery impacted by development, while SGIS provides funding for the installation costs for rooftop greenery and vertical greenery projects on existing buildings. And now moving on to housing. So the HDB Green Towns program is a large 10-year undertaking that aims to remake our existing older towns to ensure that they become greener, more resource efficient, and livable by 2030. So we aim to reduce energy consumption in public housing by 15% from 2020 levels by 2030. To achieve this, the key initiatives that are being implemented include reducing energy consumption with solar panels and smart LED lighting, piloting water harvesting systems to recycle rainwater for washing and watering of plants and to reduce flood risks, piloting new ways to cool our HDB towns, such as through the use of cool paint, which can reduce the ambient temperature by up to 2 degrees centigrade. And also more rooftop greenery, community farming, and urban farms will be injected into the towns and at more multi-story car parks. This increases the green cover and provides more green spaces for residents to enjoy. An example of one of our latest public housing estates that has been developed with sustainability and greenery at the forefront is Bidadari, which was transformed from a former cemetery. So the estate integrates nature, livability, and health and well-being outcomes while also protecting biodiversity. Situated within the Bidadari estate, Alkaff Lake is a first of its kind multifunctional drainage infrastructure for stormwater management, enhancing flood protection for the neighborhood and its surrounding areas. In dry weather, it looks like a regular lake and forms part of the recreational and aesthetic community space for the public. However, during heavy rainfall, it plays an important role in controlling stormwater runoff. It's also an innovative solution that balances the needs for drainage improvements while also enhancing the overall livability of the area by incorporating blue and green community spaces that bring the public closer to nature. Based on the third National Climate Change Study, we expect the mean sea level surrounding Singapore to rise by up to 1.15 meters by 2100, with around 30% of our land area less than 5 meters above sea level. Sea level rise poses a critical existential threat for Singapore. So while much of Singapore's shorelines were protected with seawalls and rock slopes in the past, we are increasingly exploring nature-based solutions. These solutions have the potential to address environmental challenges effectively while also enabling resilience and positive well-being outcomes. In addition to what a city can provide in terms of infrastructure, it might also be able to nurture community resilience. In times of crisis, the community are the first responders to take collective action before formal channels of aid can get to them. In a CLC-led study working with a community in Cambridge Road, we brought together stakeholders from government agencies, the community, and academic experts in a co-creation exercise to address the localized impacts of climate change, such as flood risk and heat stress. Through the project, we garnered key insights on the metrics of community resilience developed through evidence-based localized data. Strong social networks, social capital, and cohesion are strong indicators of community resilience, and these can be built through supporting the community with informational and actionable knowledge to bring about a sense of empowerment to mobilize their community. And data collected from the study highlighted how the participatory design and engagement process had contributed to an increase in community resilience over time. This suggests the effectiveness of close engagement and community actions in driving collective interventions and in building up knowledge and social ties in the process. Lastly, regenerative planning and design, which Dr. Sri also talked about, is an urban development approach that advances conventional sustainability to achieve net positive outcomes for people and the environment. It has the potential to support high-density cities in reconciling the tensions between livability and the challenges of climate change and resource constraints. CLC has been exploring the topic of regenerative city over the past couple of years and have conducted extensive work with international experts, government agencies, academics, and private sector stakeholders. We have also shared on global platforms such as the World City Summit and produced a series of publications. And as the next step, we are focused on enabling the scaling of application of regenerative approaches. And to do so, CLC is developing a scientifically validated regenerative city framework, which includes a measurement mechanism for cities to track the co-benefits of regenerative initiatives. And we're also working with partners such as C40 and leveraging global platforms such as London Climate Action Week and the C40 World Mayor Summit, as well as COP, to advance discourse in this field further. And through this, we hope to see Singapore and many other cities become highly livable and thrive despite being in a climate changed and resource-constrained future. So if you are interested to find out more about the plans and projects I've just shared and the research that CLC has conducted in the areas of regenerative cities, greening, health and livability, here are just a sample of the publications we have produced, which can be accessed by the QR code. And if you would like a more experiential, in-person way of exchanging knowledge and forging networks and partnerships with fellow cities, academia, and the private sector in these areas, I would strongly recommend you to warmly invite you to join us for the 10th edition of the World City Summit we held in Singapore next year from 14 to 16 June, where leaders and experts will convene to address livable and sustainable city challenges. With that, I end my presentation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Stewart. Unfortunately, Stewart has to leave immediately, so any Q&A questions that come through, we will forward it to him. And if Dr. Sri can answer some of them, then that would also be great. So very quickly, we need to get to that, or else we're going to, hopefully we can get a little bit more time from Agatha from CGM past 4 o'clock so we can answer some of the questions. Last but not least, Dr. Yogi, and all island cities that are Dr. Yogeswary is from Think City, and her topic today is GreenRE adaptation and resilient policies and growth in Penang City. So as you can see, the theme that we have actually picked up is cities and how they're responding to urban greening and building up resilience and adaptation. So Dr. Yogi, to you.
Thank you, Dr. Serina. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to talk on the ongoing program from, as Dr. Serina mentioned, from Penang Island. Before we start, I'm going to quickly introduce who we are, Think City. Think City is a social impact organization. We started 15 years ago as a subsidiary of Khazanah National. Our focus has been on sustainability, especially for past about 8 to 9 years on climate adaptation, especially on nature-based solution, but also on heritage. And also we are very much a community-driven urban transformation across Malaysia, where we emphasize through evidence, innovation, and partnership, basically to improve quality of life. So we began our work 15 years ago in Georgetown, Penang, in 2009, where we launched a heritage grant program with a fund of 16 million from MOF, Ministry of Finance, and also Khazanah. We supported over 240 projects to improve projects like public space, buildings, build skills, and basically celebrate culture. As you know, Penang is also, especially Georgetown, is a UNESCO city. So today we work in many cities in Malaysia, from small community project to large scale city and regional planning as well. Our impact has been always reflects the power of small, where we been generating almost 1.5 billion in economic return value through over 1,000 projects, 400 plus grants, strong partnerships, amplifying community change through strategic co-investment, co-funding, and also place-based solution. So in terms of our value proposition, we operate as a think and do tank organization. So our process always been discovery, ideation, piloting, and also implementation and scaling those success pilot projects. We focus on learning, experimental, and very much community-driven outcomes. And most importantly, we act as a neutral platform connecting all sort of stakeholders from government, private sector, communities, international partners to co-create sustainable and inclusive urban solution. So these are our core expertise at Think City. So I have colleagues from urban policy analytic, climate, where I am from, and also social resilience. We have a team on culture and heritage, placemaking, and community design. So each area foster holistic and adaptive city development. So I'm going to jump into the few projects where we started back in 2009, especially on North Seafront Master Plan and also Port Cornwallis. So this is a very important map. As you can see, this is Georgetown. And our work has started back in 2009 in few of these areas, and also Fort Cornwallis, where we, at this moment, where we are implementing a nature-based solution program funded by Adaptation Fund. So we are scaling up the zone, which also known as Climate Adaptation Zone in Georgetown World Heritage Site. So when we talk about Georgetown Conservation and Development Corporation, we jointly developed partnership between Think City, the Penang state government, and also the Aga Khan Trust for Culture, the plan to demonstrate how heritage preservation and climate adaptation can coexist. This is back in 2009. And this image highlights our key intervention zones in Georgetown, the Clan Jetty, Armenian neighborhood, Street of Harmony, and also the North and East seafront, linking the heritage preservation and climate resilience. The North Seafront Master Plan demonstrates highly on culture-based urban regeneration, where the focus has been on Fort Cornwallis and its surroundings into a high-quality waterfront that blends heritage, public access, and also climate-resilient design. So our goal always has been to restore Fort Cornwallis, to improve pedestrian connectivity, strengthen coastal defense, and enhance landscape design to ensure there's a long-term resilient and also very strong visitor experience. The restoration of Fort Cornwallis integrates heritage conservation with public realm enhancement, linking the south and the west Mohd into a cohesive cultural and ecological corridor for community and tourism. So as you can see, this is the image that where the south, which is almost done, about 80%, south Mohd and also west Mohd, and restoration of storerooms. So through the partnership, as I mentioned, Think Cities, the state government, and Aga Khan, the restoration has been focused on seawall stabilization, moat, and also adaptive reuse for heritage-based learning and tourism. So this is some of the process we went through throughout the restoration. So I'm going to go quickly. This is some of the images before and after, just to show you what is the intervention that we actually are looking at. This was during the construction of seawall, and this is after. This is also linear garden near to the seawall that we have bringing nature-based solution intervention to it. This is overall progress, as in now, the Mohd. These are the few images that just to showcase. We also actually shifted the old food court. We actually established a new food court. And what's important is we managed to green up the roof of the food court as well, where most of the vendors are from the low-income community. So this is one of the goal of our ongoing Penang nature-based climate adaptation program, where our focus has been vulnerable communities. So this is our latest development from the program. I'm gonna, so that is the story behind Think City, how we started, and I'm gonna touch on this ongoing Penang nature-based climate adaptation program. So we managed to secure funding from Adaptation Fund in 2020, where our concept note has been awarded and also approved by the Adaptation Fund. So as you can see on the screen, the funding is from Adaptation Fund, and we have 3 implementing partners. One is the Penang Local Council, the Department of Drainage and Irrigation, and also Think City. And also this program is closely monitored by the state government and supported by the state government and also Ministry of Environment Malaysia. So this is the chronology behind the program, where the program actually, when we put up the concept note, we won a Climathon Global City Award in 2020. And was endorsed by Adaptation Fund for the funding $10 million USD. When we started the whole program, definitely baseline is quite important. So we spent almost 1 to 2 years to do the baseline and to understand the climate impact in Penang Island. And this was the main challenges in the urban area in Penang. Heat stress, definitely, I think we share heat stress with Singapore as well. Dr. Sri and Stewart has mentioned that. Flood was one of the issue as well. In 2017, it was we had a very major flood issue in Penang Island. And also looking at social and also capacity building, there were some gaps as well when we did the baseline. We always use GIS to support our proposal baseline. So this, as you can see, this is a urban heat island impact in Penang Island. So the focus area has been obviously urban area, both Georgetown and Bayang Lepas. And also, when you talk about flood, a combination, because Penang is an island, combination of increased urbanization, increased volume of rainfall, because now we are getting very extreme rainfall in a short time, high tides and storm surge basically will expose Penang Island to flood as well. So as I mentioned, this program has 2 focus areas, Georgetown and Bayang Lepas. And this is the overall big program, which you can see about 5 components. Urban greening, looking at urban heat island, reducing temperature. Stormwater management, looking at flood issue. The other 3 components mainly on strategy and action, where we are working along the vulnerable communities to assess the comprehensive vulnerability baseline assessment, and also social resilience. When talk about the youth and also women, gender is also a big focus under this program, and most importantly, institutional capacity. So this program is meant to scale to different cities in Malaysia. So this is kind of a pilot project. So we have a very important communication and knowledge platform under the this program, where we must share the lesson learned through this program as well. And also the other subcomponent that we are focusing and working closely with Ministry of Health of Penang State, also climate-related public health program. So there's a capacity building when you talk about the colleagues from the hospitals, the doctors, the admin staff, the emergency department. So especially focusing on heat stress. Yeah, so there's some gaps there. So we are working closely with MOH Malaysia. So this is the program overview, some of the intervention. So when I talk about greening, that program mainly led by the local council of Penang. Stormwater management is led by Department of Drainage and Irrigation. And all the social part, the institutional part is led by Think City. But we have a very small component under the urban greening component 1, where we were giving out grants because we are very expert. I wouldn't say expert. 15 years ago, we started to give out grants to the community. So we've been giving grants to green up, especially the vulnerable communities, and also not only vulnerable communities, but also to encourage all sort of level of community, private sector, agency to green up their facade and rooftops. So this is an ongoing program from Think City as well, which I'm going to share in a bit. Some of the examples. So this is one of the example. So we give up greening, urban greening grants to, I'm not sure if you're aware, Hinbas Depot on your left side on the screen, if you can see. So Hinbas Depot started with this very small scale green roofing. And because of the, I would say, the success of the impact of reduction of temperature, we managed to scale to the Fort Cornwallis food court. So this is some example that we can share. So as you can see, our target for this program is reduction of temperature about 1 to 2 degrees, but as far as our monitoring that has been we have been doing using thermal camera, that we can see almost up to 7 degrees reduction.
Dr. Yogi, we may have just 2 minutes or so.
Okay, all right. I'll go quickly. So this is one is the infrastructure, what I shared. The other one is a social part where we're working closely. So this is some of the framework and also some of the images where we were doing focus group discussion, and we come up with a toolkit preparedness, especially on heat and flood. And we did training to the targeted area where is a flood-prone area and also heat stress areas. So this is the toolkit that we about to launch. We done some trainings, but also most importantly, as I mentioned earlier, this program is meant to scale. So last year we come up with this Malaysian Adaptation Sharing Hub. We invited almost 11 to 12 local council in Malaysia to share the knowledge that we have gained. It's almost been 2 years, the program. So we actually invited almost 12 local council around Malaysia, as you can see on the map, to share the knowledge learned and also progress from this Penang program. We also invited some experts from China International to share their knowledge on smart city, nature-based solution. And there's a lot of discussion, knowledge sharing, questions was conducted during the 2 days session. After the last year in-person workshop, we did a one-to-one follow-up session with all the local council to see, ideally to also motivate and guide them for them to come up with a new initiative on nature-based solution as well. So this is some online session that we've been doing for past, I would say, 6 months. So apart from Penang, we have few other programs also in Malaysia, and Shah Alam, Kuala Kangsar, Batu Pahat, and Yongpeng. So we in Think City, we always start with baselines first, to study the context of the city, the area, before we come up with the right implementation, because nature-based solution basically need localized solution. So each city has a different kind of solution. Also talking about policy, we also trying to align with MyNap, which is ongoing from the Ministry of Environment. I think they are about to launch next year. So this is some example as well. All right, Serina, thank you. That's all from me. Thank you so much.
Amazing. Thank you very much to all the speakers. And I really do want to get into the Q&A because I see we had a really good turnout that came in, and there's quite a lot of questions. I also had prepared some questions, but perhaps let's go straight to the Q&A from the attendees. And I'll start right from the bottom and make my way up. For Think City, interesting program. Think City, are you open for collaboration? I think Dr. Yogi, she's left her contact.
Yes. definitely, Dr. Serina. We are, as I mentioned, we are neutral party. We welcome collaborators in Malaysia and out of Malaysia. So, Dr. Sri and Stewart, maybe I will contact you. Definitely, there's
Yes.
a lot of things to learn from Malaysia as well. Yeah.
I think so. I mean, I won't sum it up just yet. I'll just go through the questions, and that obviously there's some burning questions to DBKL on plan in maintaining the health of plants in Kuala Lumpur's green landscape. Many plants in KL green landscape don't seem to be healthy. This is going down to the granular. Just to say that, and I think Muhammad Yushanizar is answering that online. I can't see the answers, but just to let you know, next week we're going from the macro down to the micro. We have arborists. We're talking about how do we actually cultivate the trees on the ground. So we're actually hitting that subject which Anonymous has asked. There is, however, a very interesting question from Dr. Serina, Chairman of the Malaysian Nature Society, who couldn't attend this, but basically, I think in light of not getting enough sponge city aspects into our city to help drain, the idea is, do we not have a permeability law like Germany? Does Singapore have a permeability law? Dr.
Yeah, I don't think there is a law per se, but because all the projects have incentives linked to performance. So whether it is ABC program, which is something which is become a very not just good to have but must have for all projects. So if you know, I think you're very familiar with Green Mark in Singapore, right? So
Yeah.
so under the Green Mark, they have reworked the different categories, and there is a lot of stress on sustainable design approaches. And things like permeability score very high when it comes to the ABC Waters certification, which is the Active Beautiful Clean certification. Also in the biodiversity scoring, right? So there's also ecosystem services, which has been included in the Green Mark. So permeability is a very key factor to get scoring on ecosystem services related to water management. So you don't have a direct correlation to it, but you know how Singapore is in terms of competitiveness. So
And
every project.
you have a
Yeah.
mandatory requirement to be green
Yes.
labeled anyway, so that becomes
Anyway,
mandatory.
exactly. No, so mandatory in terms of certification, but you know the competitiveness and the visibility and branding pushes you to go for platinum and gold, right? So the moment you have to go to the highest level, you need to make sure you kind of tick many of those boxes.
I think
So
Green Building Index in Malaysia, they also have that in terms of permeability, in terms of the environment around you. But I think that the difference is because you are much smaller. This
yeah,
basically goes across the
exactly. Yeah.
maybe DBKL can answer whether this is something that will be even more looked at in terms of not permeability, but in relationship to planning and making it. I know you have a submissions requirement now for your requirements for low carbon, and whether there's a priority there that looks at permeability. We under the drainage, for sustainable sites, as it were. So maybe you can answer that.
Thank you, Doctor. Yeah. Like you mentioned, we already introduced our low carbon building checklist to Serina, our collaboration partners, for introducing our low carbon building checklist. But when we talk about the permeability surface or like sponge city concept, we not really have any rules or guidelines for that. But we are now try to actively try to enhance and look the way forward to the permeability type of project, because our engineers now of course working hard to maybe to identify what kind of project that's suitable for Kuala Lumpur. Of course, when we talk about heavy rain, flash floods, So of course, this permeability ground is really critical for us to introduce in Kuala Lumpur. Yeah, maybe in a few years forwards, I think we will have maybe a new guideline for that, and we will also integrate into a new development approval process.
Okay. There's a question on how do we gauge the current temperature has already exceeded 1.5 degrees. I think that was answered by Stewart Tan with regards, and to Dr. Sri, there are already showing you what Stewart was mentioning is that we have reached points where we can measure at the climate locations of measurements in terms of temperature. And we have exceeded the 1.5. The question now is the regularness of this. The, how do you say, instead of it just being 3 times in a year, it may become longer periods of this. And that's where it is. I know at Bayan Lepas, it's already been measured 1.5 degrees there. If existing city shop lots are uncapped, now this is slightly differing a little bit from here, but if existing city shop lots are uncapped and not fully utilized, more natural green areas will have to be cleared for commercial areas. What is the use of greening urban areas when the destruction of natural green areas is higher rate than the greening of urban areas? The result is net loss of total green space areas over time. It is not in accordance with the first golden rule for restoring forests proposed by the Royal Botanic Kew, protecting existing forests. I think just to give a bit of context, Kuala Lumpur, as I've read in the statistics, is 33% green coverage as compared to Singapore measuring at about 40%. And we can't look at it in terms of just greening because there's a densification that's quite different in terms of population and built up area. But perhaps, Yushanizar, you can answer that, you know, as soon as we have the green spaces, but we're tearing down spaces where there is existing greenery, making way for new developments, and there is no replacement. Is there replacement now that is going to be happening under your low carbon initiatives of 70-30?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Yeah, it is a critical issues, and we trying hard to make it make it everyone feel acceptable for the commitment that we have done. Yeah, of course, there's a lot of green spaces that been developed by the developers and also the landowners. We cannot stop development, but how we can manage the developments. So we are introducing, we also reviewing our open space guidelines. So maybe in today's maybe Doctor, you know our SPEED committee introduced by DBKL. So we have one meeting today where we present our newly reviewed open space guidelines. So there will be a new conditions that we will impose to the developers. So, like for example, if the original land is demarcated as open space, then already be given to the developers to develop. So we impose much higher open space to be surrendered to the government back. So this is how, we have how to try to reclaim back the open space, and also we try to give some incentive for developers to do the open space on top of their building, maybe their podium and their rooftop, so that we can also have green spaces not only on ground but also above grade. So that was merely some way we try to reclaim back the open space. For the unused commercial shop lots, floor space, now we are introducing our repurpose or adaptive reuse guidelines. will be launched by our minister on 12th of October. So we offer some incentive for the building owners to repurpose of their buildings, like maybe reduction in terms of development charge, waivers of licensing fee. So that's some sort of incentive that we offer to the building owners. So yep, we hope that also can reduce many more development on our green spaces by trying to improve our repurpose of the building, existing building.
Thank you. There's another question on arborists. Actually, I would say that this question is probably going to be much better next week, where we have arborists, we have municipality on the ground, and to answer this question with regards to, will we have a reliable International Society of Arboriculture certified arborists working for that is recognized, and we have a directory or guideline on this. Because we are seeing essentially plants being cut down what seems to be very easily, and also for profit. So I think there's a main concern here in terms of creating a respected directory or guidelines or lists on the actions of arborists, and that you must have a certified arborist on your site or any project on the works. So I think this can be questioned again next week. We've touched on the permeability, and perhaps I want to just circle back to some of the questions I have. When did Singapore go digital on the impact of urban greenery to the city? And is this now set up as a method of determining best locations of urban greenery, flooding, densification? How has it helped shape policy or guidelines? Is this now part of resilience and adaptation planning in cities? I think that here is the interest is, why are we not now connecting it to digital on our digital twin platforms, Yushanizar, for example, and on Penang, with regards to determining solutions now and solutions for the future? Dr. Sri.
So, yeah. So I think in terms of when Singapore really started its journey of becoming more digital under the urban greenery, I would say around early 2000s, when the groundwork was laid, because that is when the lush policy came up, the skyrise incentives were set up, landscape replacement areas were kind of given as key for building owners and developers to start planning their buildings. So I would say about 2000s is when the groundwork started. Around 2010s, that is when the Future Cities Laboratory established itself, and the National Research Foundation also funded a lot of urban research under its CREATE program. So in FCL itself, we developed something called the Cooling Singapore Project, which is really about establishing the urban heat island effect in Singapore all across the island. So there was a whole digital model which was developed, where you can see the effect of urban heat island in different parts of Singapore. So which is basically a lot of remote sensing, GIS-based mapping. And that is also when the agencies started making all their data into a more accessible platform-based database, right? So you had one map, Singapore has this one map, which has all the different planning layers put together. They also digitize the green cover. So you actually have a GIS plan, which has 3 public national parks maintained tree map. So you can actually click on each of that and get to know all the specs of the tree. What's the height, what's the girth, what's the species, and everything.
Wow.
So I think it was actually a whole journey from 2000s. And now I think in the FCL latest, there is a second edition of Cooling Singapore, which is called Digital Urban Climate Twin, which is DUCT, right? So it's a new tool where they actually have multiple layers which are put into one model. And you can actually work around that model to see what kind of development will impact urban heat in what way. So like if you increase greenery, then what happens in that area? If you decrease a certain material, then what happens in that area? So so the thing is, now you are at a position where you have a digital tool which can help you predict your design solutions before you actually implement them. And that is where I think even all our research feeds in, because the idea is to see.
Public has access to that or not? Did you
Digital? No, I think right now it was something developed by the Singapore-ETH Center, but it's in the process of being plugged into the agency's planning system. So they are in the process of they have to meet all the interoperability issues. So right now it's being added into the agency platform. So, also in Singapore, very recently they came up with Urbex, which is the urban excellence segment inside URA. So they have something called the e-planner tool, which is basically a digital Singapore plan, which has everything. All agencies can then work on that one platform. So whether it's the PUB, which is the water agency, NParks, which is the greenery, LTA, which is the transport. So this is now all coming into a digital platform. So everybody then uses the same set of database to start adding their layers. So I think now moving forward, you could see that all this digital way of monitoring every element, including greenery, is going to, in a way, define how policies are made in future. So it's no more, like manual, or everything is now digital. Every planning agency is now integrated into a digital database. And they also see a lot of positive encouragement in data sharing. So they are creating this huge data sharing hub, which all the research academia can also access to. So it's all in the process. So you could see that the movement is very clear. They are moving towards more smart way of managing and monitoring.
There's a question here for Dr. Yogi about climate adaptation zone, how to determine climate adaptation zones, what is done in those zones, and is there involvement of the community in the business world as well? How is this involvement?
So when we started 15 years ago, as I mentioned, around the Fort Cornwallis and North Seawall, there's already climate resilient adaptation element to it. So under the Penang Nature-Based Climate Adaptation Program, led by MBPP, that is few of the programs activities on some example, pocket parks, 3 street trees. So what we did, we had a very conducive workshop with all our partners to come up with this zone where it can create more impacts. So this is how we actually discuss in depth and to see how best we can go about it. But also before we implement those projects, we did engage with the business owners, especially at the Georgetown area where there's a lot of SMEs, the shop lots and so on. So there's some changes in terms of introduction of the trees to reduce the temperature, and also there's some changes in terms of the traffic. So we did MBPP did a survey to ensure there's involvement of the community as well, and there's some support from them. So so far it has been a good feedback from the community as well. Just to respond to the question. In the same way, we are looking at Bayang Lepas as well, where JPS implementing in Sungai Keluang. So we will be going through the same exercise to see the impact area on those along the Sungai Keluang, because there's some residential area as well. So this is how we actually work together, not work in silo, but actually work together with the other 2 partners, so we can create more impactful intervention.
Thank you. There's an anonymous attendee that has quite a lot of questions. Planning is critical for open space before developers are invited in. Any project must require local green space park in locality, not somewhere else. I think basically saying every development should have a 10-minute walk to a green space, and that should become one of the main criterias. Residential and industrial areas should be zoned far away from each other. And that may include data centers. I think if you are a planner, you will know that industrials have zones of setup in terms of planning requirements. And if it's light or industrial heavy, the requirements are more. But perhaps Muhammad Yushanizar can answer this pertinent question of creating the 10-minute walk to every park or green park in the development, which basically Stewart Tan had actually mentioned. I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned from the Singapore. The only reason why we called in Singapore as an example is because while we may not be able to adopt as many, but there are clear indications of things that they have gone through that we can learn from, I guess. And it's really great if I could do a mapping of how everything is now being integrated and then go back into DBKL and say, okay, let's look at how we can do this integration. We don't have 10 years, we have 1 year. That's probably for another, but just answering in terms of open space and how does DBKL see that? Are you planning for that in terms of, you say you're coming up with a guideline now, so be interested if this is included in that. Yushanizar.
Yeah, thank you, Doctor. Thank you for the question. Yeah, of course, our basic planning requirements, every developers need to provide 10% per space in their development. If the plot of development is over 5 acres, then the developers need to surrender 5% of the land to be public open space. Yep, that is the basic requirement that we already imposed really long time ago. But when we're talking about like 10 minutes walk to the parks, 15 minutes city, so there's all the concept to enhance our walkability and also maybe bikeability in the city. So like I present just now, our Green Connectors project, the KL Green Connectors project is a big project, new project for us to enhance the connectivity in the northern part of Kuala Lumpur. So there will be 7 lake parks in the northern part of Kuala Lumpur that we will be integrated and connected within the area by upgrading their direction linkage, also cycling linkage, and also their landscaping component. So yep, there's others initiative that we already implemented in the city center. Of course, in terms of greening the cities, we already not really have any luxury in terms of space. So we now try to look into a new way how to plan our open space and how to make the open space accessible to the community. So yep, by doing research for new guidelines, also new conditions into the developments, so we think we can achieve the targets to enhance our green connectivity.
How different is Kawasan Lapang 10% and 5% of 5 acres? Because I have always considered 10% Kawasan Lapang as too little. In fact, in the building pools, we are asking for double of that, 20%. As a way to achieve the point, we are past the 10% line. Dr. Sri and Dr. Yogi, maybe you can back me up.
Yeah.
But,
No, Yeah, no, I think one or two points which I can share from the Singapore perspective is one policy which I feel was quite bold when they came up was something called landscape replacement area, right? So the intention was that it's not possible for Singapore to not develop, right? Because there is limited land, population is growing, you need to develop, you need to build. But how do you make sure that you still keep that image of, you know, a city which is more green and it's very biophilic? How do you keep that in mind? So the idea of having this landscape replacement area was, I think, very strong. So you could play with the percentage depending on the location. If there is more luxury for, you know, leaving open spaces, then you can do so. The idea of landscape replacement area is that if I'm building in a very dense space, right? And the plot is 100 square meters. When I develop it, my net open space or green spaces in the building or in the development should be 100 square meters. Now, how do you distribute it? How do you plan your building is where your challenge is. But you are at least forcing the development to think differently, right? Not just about building it and just maximizing your ground floor or ground coverage in GFA, but also how do you intentionally integrate the green spaces within the building. So I think there are some subtle, you know, levers which you can explore, which might give you some creative solutions. Because right now we all know land is limited, right? But the creativity can only be triggered when you can give some kind of a challenge, right? And then see what comes out of it. And I think that kind of is a very important aspect in terms of how do you push. Also, Singapore's idea of this 15, you know, like 10-minute walk to a park, it's again very challenging considering you don't have that kind of luxury of space, right? So what we are now looking at is every corridor which you can create as a green network, you know? So even your streets, all your streetscape, which is your expressways or your roads, right, are being converted into nature ways. So that means you kind of re-look at that same amenity from a different lens, right? So it's not that you're creating new areas, you're just redefining the existing areas into something which can be more than what it used to serve, right? So I think there could be many such subtle changes in the way you look at the planning elements, which may have a bigger impact in the long run. Yeah. Just some suggestions.
A quick rapid fire from all of you to give some last words. Probably Dr. has just given her last word. Probably I'll start with Yushanizar on your last thoughts with how we can better be resilient and adaptive through urban greenery. What can we do to improve this? Perhaps I start with yourself, the toughest question to DBKL. At the heart of your mayor, so.
So of course, it was a very challenging issue for us on how to be more green, to make KL green. So of course, yep. In the positive part, we most probably heard some of our tourists mention that KL is green, but is it enough for us? Then we can declare KL is green. So of course, we also have a negative feedback that we're not really green. So many gaps or many potential aspect that we can explore more to improve our green. So yeah, of course, our mayor passion about greening the cities is really high, and she also prioritized to maybe not to cut a tree for new development. And also we already have instruction from our PMX. If one tree have been cut down, so we must replace with 100 tree. 1 tree for 100 tree.
Where's this? I need this mandate.
That is our mayor story, the instruction from PMX to the mayor.
Okay.
So if one tree has been cut down, then we have to replace it with 100 tree to replace the tree. So yeah, because like we need to move forwards, that we need to explore more initiative to enhance our commitment and also to get a good feedback from our community and to give back to our community. So yeah, like our KL Green Connectors project is already on the way, and we hope we can get a good impact, high impact from the project. Also, our tree planting program also undergoing, and we hope we can achieve the targets within 1.5 million trees. And yep, also we try to look into new initiative how to reduce our carbon emission, of course, in terms of traffic jams, in terms of energy. So we will look it into a holistic way, not only for the green, but also in terms of the emission that we produce. Because we know that our energy sector is the main culprit into of course the highest emitters, and also the building sector is also the highest emitters in the city emissions. So yep, we try to do the best and try to enhance or replace our missing open spaces, and to try to maintain our gazetted forest reserve and also for open spaces. And maybe we can explore on how we can collaborate more with our key stakeholders, and maybe also we can try to explore more in terms of the carbon tax, because that will might also help DBKL as a city hall to maybe give some good initiative in terms of to reduce the carbon into the city. Yep, thank you.
And last word from Dr. Yogi. We do need to wrap up in 2 minutes. There is a question on the chat line from Nova Nelson. Won't be able to answer that, I'm afraid. But perhaps if somebody can, they can type it in. But Dr. Yogi, to you, your last words.
Yeah, thank you, Serina. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Just to add to Mr. Yu's comment, planting trees, because I think that going to be a very high focus in Malaysia as well. But most importantly, it's also important to plant the right tree. Yeah, so I think that's something that we always tend to, we have all the, plant 100 trees, 1 million trees and so on. But, the plant species is very important, where the site is very important, and the location, the desired canopy, all the other factors, the other parameters is very important for us to do it successfully. So I'm going to end on that note. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Yes, we will be discussing that in terms of the right trees next week as well with the Kementerian with regards to the selection of trees, also how you put in the ground, how you group them in order that we become resilient for wind and rain that is hitting us harder and faster. So thank you very much for joining us today. Any other feedback, please do send in to CGM. We will be compiling a document. We will look to see how we can strengthen in terms of what areas of digitalization that will help us and help the city of Kuala Lumpur rethink about how they manage digital information and set that up, because it does take time, but we really need it, and it will help in the long run towards resilience and adaptation, and the word is regeneration. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.